So I've been asked to comment on what did I learn in Antarctica and what do I take with me in my daily life from that learning. And it's really difficult to distill it down to just a minute or so. But some of the things I learned are that in order to be able to give effectively to others, I need to first take care of myself, sort of in that metaphor of putting on your own oxygen mask first if a plane is in distress. I have learned to try and fill my cup and be sure that I feel fully alive and healthy so that I can give back to others. And because of that, this is my birthday weekend, and I've taken a break from my usual role providing medical care and teaching to the population in Alaska, and I'm in Hawaii climbing a mountain, which is one of the things that really does make me feel alive and recharges my battery so that when I return, I can be more effective in my role. And I think another thing that I learned in Antarctica was that we spend, particularly as women, so much energy spinning our wheels and worrying about the what ifs related to imposter syndrome and thinking that we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're not experienced enough, and that we just shouldn't try because we're not ready. And one of the things that really was a revelation for me in Antarctica was that all of these other highly accomplished, inspirational women in STEM had similar feelings of imposter syndrome. And that if we could just work together and support each other, lift each other up, the world would be a much better place because we could spend that energy making progress instead of worrying about maybe I shouldn't try this thing. So with that in mind, I am going to close this video and head for that summit behind me, Hihimani Summit in Hawaii. And when I get back, I hope that I'll have more energy to provide excellent medical care to my patients and to teach and be a mentor to my students, and increasingly to play a role in public advocacy for better health policy for the population of Alaska and the planet, particularly health policy as it takes the impact of climate change on our human health into account. So thanks for the encouragement to take a moment to breathe, and I wish you all the very best.
Hello. A couple of things that were profound for me about being in Antarctica and have influenced me since I've come back. I think the most profound thing was having an experience where I was immersed in nature very consciously, where nature was still dominant. So we're always immersed in nature. However, in places like the UK, human influence is now becoming bigger than nature's influence, apart from when there are emergency events. However, in Antarctica, it was so clear that we had to be humbled. Our plans changed because of the cycles that nature was in. Too much ice, a storm, and also by choice and by wonder when seeing whales or albatrosses or penguins would interrupt us from our learning journey. And actually, that's one of the things that I have brought back with me, is the willingness to be interrupted by nature. So now I took one of the recommendations from the learning to back oneself when in the working world, and my job changed when I came back, and now I allow space and time in my working day and with the team to sometimes stop and wonder at nature. Sometimes the agenda can be interrupted to just remember that we're part of nature, we're just merely one species on this planet, and sometimes it's good to be humbled and remember that. So that's one of the biggest things that both I was in awe of and have made space for since I've come back. Thanks for listening.
Hi everyone, my name's Mari. I'm from Homeward Bound 3. Some of the key lessons I learned from going to Antarctica. Whoa, how can you not? I was really worried about being in the giant waves of the Drake Passage, so much so that I almost didn't apply for Homeward Bound. So one of the big learnings I had was that when we reach out to each other, accept the comfort and support of other people, and also extend that to our own selves, we're able to look at scary experiences through a lens of curiosity rather than self-judgment. So instead of being terrified, I actually enjoyed the 10-meter waves we had in the Drake Passage. And that carried over into the rest of my life, giving me courage to do things that worry me, and having trust that I'm up to the challenge. The other main thing that comes to mind is realizing that I can choose to judge myself by my own values rather than that of other people. And that makes a huge difference, especially as a scientist, where you're constantly working in an environment where there's always someone doing more, publishing more papers, getting more grants, etc. And so you have to choose the balance that works for you, and then you can feel good about that. And going along with that is then also being kind to yourself in how you judge yourself and not putting yourself up for impossible standards that can never be met. So I hope that's helpful. I mean, aside from that, the grandeur, the unbelievably vast scale of Antarctica, the clean air, the light, it's just absolutely astounding. And I can't imagine anyone could go there and be unchanged. So that, combined with the Homeward Bound experience, really was a life-changing, transcendental kind of event for me. Thanks.
I'm sorry.
Oh my god! Oh, jeez. Look at this wave. Oh my god. Oh, holy cow, look at how long down the trumpet. Oh my gosh. Oh, look at this wave. Look at this. Oh!
Hello, I'm Sofia Eiset. I'm originally from Sweden and part of the Homeward Bound Sisterhood. Antarctica is the most amazing place. The remoteness, the wilderness, the wildlife. It's hard to explain how beautiful the place is. It made a huge impact on me, as you could really see what climate change can do. The receding glaciers, the penguin colonies. It's really sad, but it's obvious, and obvious that we need to do something about it now. So what I brought back, apart from trying to be an advocate for climate change and to change the opinion of people around me, also that you can do small things, like when I left Australia to move back to Sweden, I donated all my teacups to work, just to make sure that no more single-use plastic. Stop doing that, it's stupid, and use something that is you can use over and over again. So Antarctica is an amazing place, part of this planet, and the planet is worth fighting for. So everybody can do something, do your part. Thank you.
Por favor, iniciar el regreso al buque.
Ok, ya vamos. No joda.
¿Me tomaron? Denle pues L, por favor. Copiado.
Copiado.
Maxi copiado.
Copiado, pero no nos va.
Pablo, acá está Kiki en la planchada. Cuando termina ya podemos empezar. Afirma.
Hi, my name's Mary Ellen Feeney. I was part of Homeward Bound 3, and I'd like to respond to a couple of questions that my colleague Helen Wade has asked me about. The first being what I took away from Antarctica and what made a real difference in my life. I'm a geographer by trade, and I guess the scale of the landscape and all of the contributing factors to the impacts on that landscape, be the smallest ripples of our environmental impacts around the world and climate change, and the huge ramifications that are occurring down in Antarctica, is something that was exceedingly visible and impactful for me from my experience in Antarctica. I guess also the scale of human problems and issues in that vast environment. You know, we are a very small part of our global ecosystem, yet we have a huge impact for the size of the scale that we are. So a relatively untouched environment to be experiencing such huge impacts really brought home to me the responsibility we have as stewards of our environment and of the legacy of future generations to protect what we've experienced and enjoyed for those that come after us. On a day-to-day basis, what difference did my learnings through the Homeward Bound program and my Antarctic experience have? It actually made me really courageous and helped me drop that barrier of, I guess, self-limitation in terms of my career. So it really helped me take my career from a technical leadership to a business and executive leadership level, to embrace courage over comfort, and to realize that the contribution I can make in leadership circles and for decision making and the representation of my voice amongst many male leaders in this sphere, and actually a really lack of diverse representation in our decision-making circles and how important that has helped me really start to make a difference and to drive outcomes forward in business spheres and also at the strategic level. I think, we can accept lack of change for only so long before there's really no more excuses, and we just really need honest and courageous leaders who are willing to say now is the time, and there's no more delay in taking a realistic and representative view of the decisions we need to make for a better future.
Antarctica was a lot about emotions, overwhelming emotions, especially positive ones, because Antarctica is such an immense, beautiful, amazing place where one can feel very tiny and in total admiration for nature's beauty. So I brought back these emotions with me and I treasure them. It's all these emotions are in a little box that I open every so often and that I think about. But what I brought back as well is the sense of sisterhood that we had on the lady boat of Homeward Bound to overcome these emotions, because some of these emotions were not only positive, but they were also about anxiety of watching such a beautiful place threatened. And the sisterhood that we built on the boat is one of the things I brought back with me that helps me every day, lifts me up when I'm down, and I feel very, very lucky to know all the women I met on the boat and to think about them regularly, to talk to them and write to them and get this invisible support in my everyday life.
Hello, my name is Madeline and I am a lecturer in remote sensing and GIS, and I work for the UK Ministry of Defence as a civil servant at the moment. And I went to Antarctica with Helen as part of HB3, and it was really interesting for me to go to Antarctica because it wasn't actually ever a dream of mine to go to Antarctica. For some people it was. But for me, I'm from the Shetland Islands and I also spent time growing up in northern Norway, so I've always been interested in the north and the Arctic and places that you might kind of think of as edge lands or peninsulas and places sort of on the edge. So I guess I was interested in Antarctica from that point of view. And I think the main thing that I learned from Antarctica is just how different some places in the world are and how little of the diversity of the world I've seen. It was just incredible to see a place that was just so different to anything that I was used to before. And I also found it really interesting to go on a physical journey, such a sort of extended physical journey like that, and how much that helped with our learning process and just being in this totally different place that was also changing every day. And I think that really reflected how our kind of thinking was changing every day and gave us a really nice space to keep thinking and changing. And then what have I taken into my daily life from this? I think about Antarctica every day, and I think about how beautiful and wonderful the places that I get to go every day actually are. So I like the fact that I don't feel like I have to go all the way to Antarctica or all the way to some exciting place to enjoy being in nature. I can just go to the beach or go to the woods or make an effort to go on sort of micro adventures, I guess you can call them, and stay in the UK and have a wonderful time here. And the other way that I take it into my daily life is in my absolute daily interactions with people. So we talked a lot about our values and how our behaviours reflect our values, and I think about that all the time. So I think being given that structure and then always being able to think back to being in Antarctica and how meaningful it felt when we were in Antarctica kind of underpins all of those values and all of that thinking and kind of legitimizes it in a way for me. So that was really important for me about Antarctica.
Antonio, llévanos a ver ballenas. Llévanos donde las ballenas.
¿Ballena?
Donde las orcas.
Hi, I'm a friend of Helle. I'm live in Denmark, Copenhagen. So I grew up here in Denmark in the 70s. So somehow I know I'm a white privileged woman just coming from Denmark, but my background was actually not that privileged. I grew up in a working class family, and also the whole neighborhood was a bit rough. And the 70s was also a bit rough. We had the oil crisis, and I remember being quite scared about what will happen to the world at that time. Then the 80s came and things changed. And for me, Antarctica somehow invoked that fear or criticism I had in me, but also what I learned in Antarctica is actually how much your lens is prone by where you're born, where you're raised, and actually also with a time you were born in. I could see a huge difference with other women 20 years younger than me. It was not only a cultural difference that affected me, and I take that with me in my work life today, that how different we think depends on what generation that you are. And from Antarctica as such, it was a warm and wonderful experience to be with so bright and giving other women. One small thing I had as a bonus was to understand and love birds more, and that was thanks to Helen and other wonderful women. I didn't expect that. So enjoy your day.
For me, Antarctica really brought into focus our connection to place and how place is important in shaping our values, our feelings and our purpose. Before travelling to Antarctica, I could never have anticipated the impact that the landscape would have on me. As an ecologist, I thought it would be the wildlife that would be my highlight, so the whales, the penguins, the albatross species that I would see. I really didn't anticipate the almost visceral sense of Antarctica as being in flux. It felt like it was shifting and moving, almost breathing sometimes. So, for example, glaciers would rumble and crack as they slid slowly down to the sea. Avalanches would tumble down slopes as snowdrifts got too heavy, and icebergs literally fizz as they melt, and ancient pockets and bubbles of air get released into the atmosphere.
for somewhere so hostile to life, it often felt alive. And this sense of flux really brought home to me the role that we are playing in speeding that movement up. And it was very clear to me that although Antarctica and often nature in general feels very resilient and strong and ever present, it's actually extremely fragile, and we hold its fate in our hands. The privilege of going to Antarctica really clearly showed me what we and our planet stand to lose if we don't act with urgency on the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss. And this motivates me to do my best every day for nature. And it made me realise that although Antarctica can feel remote from us, it really isn't. We influence it every day with our collective actions. And just like Antarctica can feel remote, so can the possibility of creating meaningful change and impact, which can be completely demoralising and demotivating at times. But when this happens, I try to focus on the things I am having an impact on, even if it's small, and to remind myself of a quote from Jane Goodall, which is, "I like to envision the world as a jigsaw puzzle. If you look at the whole picture, it is overwhelming and terrifying. But if you work on your little bit of the jigsaw and know that people all over the world are working on their little bits of the jigsaw, that will give you hope." And the women I went to Antarctica with and the community that has come out of that experience completely embodies that for me. And it reminds me that we're all interconnected, nature, climate, people, place, and that small acts really can add up to a big impact if we all move in the same direction.
Hello everyone, I'm Aditi Gupta from India. I was part of the HP3 program and was on the boat to Antarctica along with 80 other women who were very passionate in their fields. Antarctica, for me, puts a lot of things in perspective. The silence there can never be experienced anywhere else, yet it has noise which startles. The contrast of its color is unimaginable, yet it is all white. Its natural balance displays immense power, yet it is so fragile. For me, it's an emotion and not a place. I think what I brought back from Antarctica is the realization that how blessed I am to be able to touch, feel, and see the nature, to experience its strength and calmness. Hence, each day of my life, I strive to respect it and to preserve it and do my role so that I'm able to share it in its truest form with our future generations and fulfill our responsibility towards them. Thank you.